Welcome to our second session on MyTarbiyyah Reflections, where we go through some of the topics around parenting, mentoring, teaching, discussing many more things in detail. So if you remember, we started off with this dua last week as well, which I'll just repeat today as well. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'a wa rizqan tayyiba wa amalan mutaqabbala. Oh Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge. So knowledge which will benefit me. And how will it benefit me? It will bring me closer to you. It will bring me closer to my true purpose in life. And scholars say another meaning of this beneficial knowledge is knowledge which will enlighten me, and it will make me more aware of the faults I have, of the actual lack of knowledge I have. So this is also beneficial knowledge, is where one realizes his mistakes, where one realizes the sins, where one realizes his misunderstandings. This is real beneficial knowledge, where one is then able to correct himself. Rizqan tayyiba. So rizq, we said, if you remember, the rizq doesn't just mean food. So rizq is in many forms. It's in the form of kids, of education, anything which Allah Ta'ala provides us. It needs to be tayyib, it needs to be pure, it needs to be beneficial for us. And finally, amalan mutaqabbala. So deeds which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will accept. So not just deeds that we do, but deeds which on the day of judgment will be acceptable. And how will those deeds be acceptable? They will have, inshallah, they will have sincerity. No matter how big or how small, if they're done with sincerity, then that inshallah will help us attain salvation. So there's 3 asks from our sessions, please, which is please make notes. Okay, making notes is absolutely essential, because what happens here is not only are we listening, okay, through writing, knowledge is being transferred within us. Okay, so these are different mediums how knowledge goes into our brains, into our minds, into our hearts. So one is the visual element, one is the auditory element, one is the physical writing. So these are the 3 ways knowledge can enter. Once that enters, then it's held in you could say in a storage space in our brains. Okay, now it's up to us how much we assign. Is it 5 megabytes? Is it 10 megabytes? The problem is storing information in a few megabytes worth of space in the brain isn't good enough, because the knowledge has to be turned into action, and knowledge is only turned into action once it's internalized. Okay, once we feel that it's serious, that I need to bring this into action now. Otherwise, we will be questioned for this on the day of judgment. The problem with the education system at the moment, or should I say, the problem with our worldview and education is there is a need to learn more information. And if a person has photographic memory, absolutely fantastic, he's going to ace the exams. But on the day of judgment, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala isn't going to ask us how much you know. He's going to ask us, from what you knew, how much did you bring into practice? From that which you knew, how much did you role model? So after making notes, one way of internalizing the information further and bringing it really deep down into the core of your heart is to share. And what we say is, please share with at least 3 people. So that can be your spouse, it can be family members, it can be friends, it can be colleagues at work, anyone who you have a good relationship with. And it's really interesting. Actually, I've just thought about this now. So relationships, who will you share this information with? You will only share it with people who you are in a deep relationship with. I mean, you're not going to go find a stranger and start talking to them, because it's not really going to impact them. And neither are they willing to accept you, because they don't know you. But if you trust someone, you have a deep relationship with someone, and you would go and discuss, then the person is more receptive to what you have to say, because they respect you, they love you, they will value your words, they will value your concern that this person is sharing something with me because he genuinely cares for me, or maybe I'm in this situation. So you're more likely to accept information, you're more likely to accept knowledge, you're more likely to take advice from someone who you are in a relationship with. So inshallah, they will be later. So the question is, can we discuss it with children? Absolutely, we can discuss it with children. But see, it has to be a discussion and not a telling. So there's a very big difference. So one is, this is what I learned, you need to do it. No, we're not here teaching. What we're here is we're having a discussion that this is what I learned today. What do you think about this? Once that conversation, once the dialogue, once the discussion starts, that's when the brain starts developing neurological connections. And that then helps form a deeper understanding and belief in what you're discussing. And then finally, once we have shared as well, we need to apply. So they're the three asks that that we were always asked for, and we found that once we did these three steps, alhamdulillah, the knowledge that we were picking up was it was being brought into action. This is something interesting as well, which I came across just the other week, is the learning pyramid. So, I mean, there's lots of different learning theories, and this is just one as well. So when we listen to things, we learn about 5% of what we sort of listen to. When a person starts reading, then because it's a slightly slower process, you can go back and read again, and you're physically sort of looking at the letters and trying to make sense of it. You retain 10%. When you listen and read, so there's some listening, there's some supplementary reading, then that learning is improved up to 20%. If we then start demonstrating what we've listened and we've read, okay, so demonstrating those behaviors, then we begin to learn more. So then we're talking about 30%. Once we start discussing, because when we start discussing, that's when questions arise, questions in your own mind arise, and also you begin to again question, did I understand that properly? But how about this? How does it fit into my life? Or your kids or your spouse or your family members will ask you as well. So discussion then reinforces the learning, and it makes you ask questions. It makes you have a really deeper understanding of the concept, and that's when learning really becomes, so we're looking at 50% over here. And then once you start applying, that's when really all that knowledge and information inside flows out through your limbs. Now, something very interesting which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has mentioned as well, which I think is pertinent over here, is there's a piece of flesh in the body. If that is correct, then the entire body is correct. But if that is corrupt, then the entire body is corrupt. And what is that? That is the heart. So a part of the whole sort of learning process is having the heart which is receptive, which is soft enough for the seed to be sown. I mean, you can't plant a seed when the soil is hard. You can't plant a seed when the soil is dry, when it has no nutrients. So what a lot of our scholars say is we need to make sure our hearts are soft. They've been nurtured, they have the nutrients, they're receptive. So when they receive knowledge, when they receive information, okay, the seed flourishes. And we see that seed flourish very quickly, and it starts to bear fruit. And that's when actions come out as well. And then finally, when it comes to teaching, so over here, what the model was, which I slightly disagree over here, is when we teach, it really enhances our learning. So when we talk about the word teaching, I don't mean teaching here where you sit down in front of a class and give a lecture. Our teaching is more in line with the Sunnah, which is to physically role model and practice. And again, I'm going to give an example of this, inshallah, shortly. So in the last session, we discussed around control, condition, and monitor. So this is the traditional Tarbiyyah methodology, which a lot of people adapt, and they think that this is how we need to do the Tarbiyyah. But what we said was, that's wrong. That is not how Tarbiyyah is done. Our paradigm, our understanding of Tarbiyyah is we need to build relationships. So going back to what I said earlier as well about sharing, you can only share information and it will only be beneficial to you and the other person is if we have a relationship. Okay. So just on relationships, I think we discussed this again, which I'll touch upon, is what's the difference between a relation and a relationship? So a relation, we can be in a relation. Me and my wife can be in a relation at home. Okay. Does that necessarily mean that we have a strong relationship? I mean, looking at the world today at the moment, you know, we are one Muslim ummah. You know, we have a relation that we are bonded by our faith. But why is it that the Muslim ummah is not helping each other? Why is it that we're so isolated? It's because the relationship hasn't been developed. When a person marries, they come into contact with each other, and all it is, it's a contract. You know, I accept you as my wife, I accept you as my husband. That's the relation that has been developed. But now the relationship has to be worked on. And how is that going to come? It's going to come through love. It's going to come through respect. It's going to come through understanding. It's going to come through patience. It's going to come through sacrifice and being selfless, not selfish. So unless we have these ingredients, relations will not develop into relationships. And if there's no relationship, there's no discussion, there's no sharing. Sharing feelings, sharing emotions, sharing ideas, sharing concerns. And this is what we're finding a lot in especially our youth nowadays. So whether they're our students, whether they are our kids, whether it's their spouse, because we haven't worked on the ingredients of a relationship, people are not prepared to open up and they're suffering in silence. They are suffering in silence and they're resorting to Professor Google. I say this all the time. They're resorting to Sheikh YouTube. They're resorting to the clinics. They're resorting to antidepressants. They're resorting to, anxiolytics. But the true and the real solution to all of this is if I was in a relationship, a healthy relationship, where I could be trusted. The person I'm in a relationship was non-judgmental. They would listen to me, and after listening to me, they wouldn't change their behavior in a negative manner. Don't you think this kind of a person or this kind of relationship would fruition into something beneficial? I can tell you, from sort of personal experience here, and I've shared many in the past, and I can share a couple today as well, is at the moment we in the workplace. So I think this is probably more appropriate for either if you're an employer or if you have kids and students as well. Actually, that's probably for everyone. One of the things that we're finding in the workplace is, we heavily recruit lots of people. So we have lots of teenagers, coming in on apprenticeship schemes, or, it's their first or second job. And what we're finding is a lot of these people coming into our workplace are really struggling. So when I say they're struggling, they don't have the skills to communicate. They're constantly under pressure and they're constantly fearful of being judged. And if there's a problem, they're suffering in silence. And sooner or later, I'm discovering they've got appointments to see psychologists and psychiatrists. There's a whole host of issues surrounding them. It's very hard for them to communicate with customers. They can't deal in stressful situations. And the moment these people are shown some mercy, they're shown some compassion, they're given a safety net to make mistakes, they begin to open up, and they many a time they end up in tears that, I've never been given so much trust, or I've never been able to discuss this with anyone. And each time I have discussed it, I've always been gunned down because there's a target to hit, or there's a certain grade or certain expectation of me. So I think relationships here, inshallah, again, we're going to go into this in much more detail. So what should a husband and wife relationship be like? What should a mother and daughter relationship be like? What should a father and son relationship be like? So this is what, inshallah, we need to go into in a lot more detail. But again, I think what I'd like everyone to do is just reflect on who have been the most influential people in your life. Have they been the people who you have been in a relationship with? So, what are the ingredients that have allowed you to open up to them? What are the ingredients where you've felt that, I really want to be close to this person? I want to spend more time. So the relationship that we're talking about is when you leave that person, there is a sense of longing and belonging that I wish I could go back. I just don't want this session to end. I just want to hear more and more. That's when we're talking about a relationship. Okay, that is the sign of a relationship. And how does that develop? It develops by working on ourselves. It's MyTarbiyyah. So one of the things which we have in the retail industry is something called an NPS score, which is a Net Promoter Score. So what is this? This is basically, and I'm sure you've had these surveys as well when you've been out shopping, etc., is you're asked a question from a rating of 0 to 10. How would you rate your experience, or how likely are you to recommend this business or this product to friends and family or colleagues? Now, if the answer is a 9 or a 10, then you are classed as a promoter. So what does that mean? The company sees you as a promoter, that you've enjoyed your experience with our service, our product so much that we don't need to work on you anymore. What we did with you, our interaction with you, was sufficient to make you pleased, so we've developed a relationship. Now, automatically, you will go and give a positive review. So you will talk about it with family and friends. You will give recommendations. So a classic example would be, you need to go to that restaurant. Absolutely amazing. Make sure this is the person that you order from because he gives extra sauces or whatever. He gives a bigger portion, or the way he makes it is amazing. Or if you're going to buy a product, he'll say, make sure you speak to him because he'll explain it in a lot more detail. Okay. And he'll give you value for money. So when we talk about products, especially I'm talking about, in the retail industry, and you automatically become a promoter for the company. So the companies don't worry about these people. What they have invested in is they've invested in their staff and in their systems to make sure you have the most enjoyable experience. So you will come back again, and you will also bring your family and friends. Then you have the scores of 0 to 6. So 0 to 6 clearly implies you've had a very bad interaction. You've had a very bad experience. And what's going to happen the next time you're sat with your family or friends and you want to order a takeout from that place, or you want to order a product, you'll say, no, you don't want to go there. I had such a bad experience, you want to avoid. Okay. So this person is no longer a promoter for the business. This person is actually a detractor. What does that mean? It means that this person is very dangerous to the business because he will deter customers away. So the moment customers are deterred away from a business, that's where the business drops. So what do the companies do? They will go back and look at the experience. Why did you have that experience? Who did you speak to? What words were used? Conversations are recorded nowadays, whether it's online on chat, whether it's on the phone, or you may even be contacted. So if the company is really proactive, which is what we used to do, is we used to then contact the customers, ask them for their feedback and what exactly went wrong. Then we would go back to the source. So if it's a staff member, if it's an individual, we would go and have a meeting, right? What went wrong? You used the wrong words. Maybe you were having a bad day and you took out your anger or your frustration on the customer. That's bad relationships with customers. You need to work on your relationship skills. So this is how crucial relationships are in the consumer industry. Okay, those guys, I'll just finish off. Those guys who were on 7 and 8, these people are neutral. So neither are they really going to promote the business, but neither are they going to really badmouth the business. So we can leave those guys alone. That's not much of a concern. Okay. Ideally, we want to turn them into promoters, but the ones that we need to worry about are the 0 to 6. So the question I ask here is, the people that come into contact with us, the people that come into contact with us, how many of those people will give us a score of 9 and 10? How many of those people will go back and say, you need to sit with this person, fantastic individual, beautiful advice, so patient, so caring, absolutely selfless, right? Really good listener, completely non-judgmental. If you need anything, you need to go to this person. How many of our friends, or let's take it a step further. If this question, if I was to ask this question to my wife, what score would she give me? Will she give me a 9, 10? Will she be on the fence, 7, 8? Or will she say, you know what, 0 to 6? He's always angry. He has a temperament. I can't share anything with that person. Okay. It abuses me psychologically, abuses me emotionally. Right? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves. It's my tarbiyyah. Until we do not ask this to ourselves, we will not change. And again, if you have the heart, please do go and ask. If you can't ask your spouse, I mean, we should be able to really, there needs to be this relationship where we really want to improve ourselves. Like we say this again and again in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Mulk, الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. So, Allah Ta'ala created, He gave you life and death. Why? To see which of you are ahsanu amala, which ones amongst you are best in your deeds. So Allah here didn't use the words aktharu amala, which of you are most in your deeds. No, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking for ihsan. He's asking for perfection. He's asking for beauty. So once we have beautified our deeds, once we have beautified our character, okay, so by deeds here, I don't mean, purely the fact that I'm dressed in a sunnah manner. That's absolutely essential. We need to be following the sunnah. But what we're referring to here to build relationships is there needs to be beauty in character. So we should be able, and one of the exercises which I would like everyone to do is, those people that are close to us, without getting offended, please go and ask, how would you score me from 0 to 10? Okay, 9, 10 would say, you would like other people to spend time with me. You would like other people to come to me for advice. You would like other people to come and confide in me. You would like other people to come and share their problems. Okay. Do I have the temperament where I can listen to you? Do you have the temperament? Do I have the patience where I can take on all this load and respond in a really positive manner? I mean, look at the example of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sahaba coming to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and saying, "Ya Rasulullah, I've done zina. What am I supposed to do? Please help." Just imagine our child coming to us and saying, Dad, may Allah protect us all, may Allah safeguard all our youngsters. But if someone was to come to us with that question, our kids especially, or our students, what would our response be? Would we be in the 9 and 10? Or would we be in the 0 to 6? Would we chase them away? Would we shame them? Would we look at them in the future? Next time we look at them with be judgmental, that I know what's happening in your mind. This is the question we have to ask ourselves. So going back to this tarbiyyah methodology, the only way tarbiyyah can be done is if we have a temperament, if we have the character which the deen is asking of us. Otherwise, we cannot do the tarbiyyah of our kids. We cannot do the tarbiyyah of anyone. It's impossible. The person will listen to you out of fear. The person will follow your advice, follow your commands out of fear of retribution, out of fear of being punished, out of fear of being humiliated. Okay. But long term, that piece of advice or that action will not be internalized. And this is what we're finding now. Kids are leaving madrasa, kids are leaving education, and they don't have a backbone. They don't have a backbone in terms of belief. They don't have a backbone in terms of their confidence, in terms of their character. They're finding it very hard to stand up to batil. They're finding it very hard to stand up against all the misinformation, and they're trying to find excuses just to fit into society. Why? Because they've always had to do that. They've always had to fit in. So they're at home, they have to fit into the home environment. Otherwise, parents aren't going to be happy. They go to school, they have to fit into the school environment because it's the fear element, right? They go out with friends, and it's the same thing. I need to do things to please my friends. Why? Because the core thing, relationships haven't been developed. Then they're not able to come into a relationship with someone and really learn what it means to be yourself. Really have the confidence to really strive to do what you believe in. I don't care what the world says. I am prepared to do what I want, to do what I believe is correct. So a lot of the tarbiyyah hinges on relationships. I mean, there's lots of parents that come and say, I have a very bad relationship with my kids. Okay, they don't listen to me. Okay, they reply back, etc. Lots of these issues that I'm sure we've experienced or heard of. If the relationship was good from day one, okay, then the person will respect you. I mean, the relationship that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just, another thing which I just want to point out here is, so the relationship that we're talking about here is not the relationship of fear, okay? It's the relationship of love. Now, one of the things that we're guilty of is, you'd better not do that as Allah's going to punish you. Do you know how bad Jahannam is? Do you know about your bad deeds? So one of the downfalls of us as parents and teachers is we are constantly trying to make our kids swallow the pill of Islam, and the pill that we're giving is the pill of fear. It's the pill of Jahannam. It's the pill of being punished. Whereas the Islamic, the mizaj of Islam, of Deen, is the complete opposite. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces himself in the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And then the opening surah in the Quran, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Allah himself is he's introducing himself as the Rahman and the Rahim. But the introduction we are giving our kids to Allah and Islam is nar, is Jahannam. And this is why people are so fearful. And then we use the same tactics with trying to build a relationship or give an introduction to ourselves as parents. Look, I'm your father, you better be careful, otherwise. But Allah is saying, no, I'm Rahman Rahim. It's okay, you make a mistake, no problem. I've got your back covered. I can forgive, no problem. So what kind of a relationship would we like to be in? Would we like to be in a relationship of love or love and forgiveness? Or would we like to be in a relationship of fear? This constant fear. The fear element has to be there. But subhanAllah, it's a very fine line. The fear element, I believe, comes in, I fear you because I don't want to lose your respect. So asal, it's based on love. I love you so much. I don't want to upset you. I don't want to get you angry. That's what I fear. I fear you getting upset with me. Why? Because I love you so much. So this is the actual tarbiyyah methodology. Now, how are relationships then developed? Then we go into reflective conversations and self-accountability. And then over here, this is another ayah which I came across, which I thought is relevant to be shared today, is Is here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa antum muslimun. So here, the focus, what I want everyone to focus on here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is saying, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. So here Allah is saying that you would, it's like Allah is grabbing hold of me and saying, you'd better not die except as a Muslim. So Allah here is saying, look, I've made you a Muslim, right? You're going to live your life as a Muslim, but make sure you die as a Muslim, nothing else. So here Allah is talking to me. He's not asking me to talk to my kids or students and say, guys, you'd better die as Muslims, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. No, Allah is saying, look out for yourself first. You know, have I mean the common translation of taqwa here is, is fear Allah, okay, as he should be feared. But you see, like I explained before, the fear is actually the Rahman and Rahim. The fear out of love, not the fear out of pure punishment. That's not who our Allah is. Our Allah is very merciful. He's very forgiving. But the point here is, do not die except as Muslims. So that here is saying that, I've reached a stage where I'm a father. That doesn't free me from the hellfire. I'm a teacher, I'm a Shaykh al-Hadith, I'm a Mufti, I'm the CEO. That does not give me the certificate of entering Jannah. It doesn't. It's far from it. Allah is saying to me that, look, you still better die as a Muslim. And what is a Muslim? There's various hadith. I was just studying, and we think we should sit down with our scholars. And if we look at the amount of deeds which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to do, that are linked, that are related to character, that are related to our dealings with people. So if we put that in a pot, and then we put the deeds that are related to us and Allah, so that's basically ibadat. Okay, so that's praying, that's fasting, giving even charity falls under, helping other people. Okay, but if we were to sort of portion, the majority of deen is based around character and dealing with people and relationships. So that's Muslims, that's non-Muslims, that's humans. It's also animals. It's also trees and creatures. There is, and for that you need to have a relationship. You don't need knowledge to be able to have a stature in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need a relationship. Who are the best of you? The best of those are you who are most kind to their family and to their wives. Allah doesn't say the best of you are those who've done 25 Hajj. The best of you are those who have 4 houses on cash and they've got investments in the stock markets. That is not the criteria which Allah has set. Allah Ta'ala has set a criteria. The best of those are you who have. It's character related. It's relationship related.